Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and welcome to another show of Friday Night Live with your DJ Triple A. Thank you for tuning in, whoever's on Periscope. I hope you guys see and hear us well. For the questions part, I always tell people, whoever's watching on the Periscope, since I can't really monitor the Periscope feed right now, I always tell them to check out my Instagram and ask the questions right there, and then I'll try to forward these questions to our guests. But if not, I guess if you know me personally, you can go ahead and WhatsApp me a question, and I'll check it during the break time. So anyways, back to the main topic here. So this is the 8th episode of Friday Night Live, and we have a special guest here, a really close friend of mine. Her name is Nasreen. Welcome to the studio, Nasreen.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad she came. She is honestly a lifesaver, guys. Like, I had no guest, and then she just agreed to come on the show. And honestly, I'm so happy right now that this is happening.
It's what I do, save lives.
Thank you. So the topic for today's show, since like I said, it's very last minute. I didn't even get to prepare the poster, which I usually do. The topic for this show is depression. And, you know, what is depression? How does it affect our lives, student lives in UAE specific, but lives, like people in general. So without further ado, I'd like Nasreen to introduce herself. Go ahead, Nasreen.
Okay, hi. As he already mentioned, my name is Nasreen. Yeah. I'm a student majoring in psychology, so this is my last year. So I'm not a professional. I'm not a psychologist, right? But I am. Knowledge. Yeah, I'm studying. I'm trying to get there. So
she's got the know-how, and that's important. Yeah. That's all that's important.
So if you guys have any questions, you can Instagram him or WhatsApp him, like you said.
Or WhatsApp Nasreen. She can also check.
If you know me personally.
So Nasreen, before that, I'd like to know about your FYP project.
My FYP, yeah. Okay. Okay. Since I'm in my last year, I have this project. Mm-hmm. What I'm doing is. The title is Religious Approach. Religious approaches used by university students in coping with depression and anxiety. Mm-hmm. Now, why did I choose this topic? It's because, you know, depression and anxiety is one of the most common form of mental disorders that most of the students in universities and high school face. Mm-hmm. So I was curious. I'm like, okay, if we are in a supposedly Islamic setting, right, Islamic International University, how is that affected? You know, Islam is such a beautiful religion. It is supposedly the cure to every kind of disease, physical and mental. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, is it being used among students? Is Islam being related to their depression and anxiety? And if they are, like maybe there are elements that I can identify, and maybe it can be used in like a modern psychotherapy kind of clinical setting. Mm-hmm. That's very if that makes sense.
No, it does. To me, at the very least, it does, and it's actually very interesting because we all keep hearing how, you know, like the stereotypes, I guess, you know, when someone is feeling down, they'll be like, oh, just read Quran, but then what does that really mean?
Yeah, so. The issue is like, there's a lot of stigma behind mental illness, right? So when you're sick, it's like, you're not sick, you're just a bad Muslim. You have to pray more, you have to do this, you're not doing things right. Now, I mean, that doesn't help, you know, saying that kind of stuff. Or I've heard a story where this one person was feeling really, really depressed, like depressed to the point she wasn't eating, she wasn't sleeping. It was so bad. And what the family did, it's the Malay family. So what this Malay family did was they took her to this sheikh to do some exorcism, some jinn exorcism kind of thing, to take away the evil jinn. And the thing is, she didn't understand what was happening. Like, she didn't think her problem was jinn, you know? So when she's there and this whole thing is happening, it worked for her parents, they felt better, but it didn't work for the person intended for it to get better. So, you know, it didn't work. And that actually made her have a negative view about Islam. You know, that kind of distanced her from that. And that's what I feel should be addressed when, you know, Islam is used in dealing with mental health.
That's actually very important, actually. Like, people don't really talk about that, you know, how people could, by being too judgmental or, like, you know, accusing people, like, oh, you're not close to Allah, how that could have like a negative effect between their relationship between them and Allah. And
exactly, like it actually does, you know, push away people at some point. So it's very delicate, you know.
Yeah,
it's kind of Yeah.
So before that, we let's first understand what is depression. Okay.
Okay.
So from a psychological perspective, how would you define depression?
Okay, according to the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, Edition 5, okay, depression is it's categorized under a mood disorder. So it is sadness, but to a way bigger extent. You know, there are many symptoms that are covered under depression, such as loss of appetite, sleeping patterns are very disturbed. Like you either wake up hours before you're supposed to sleep and you cannot go back to sleep, or you just cannot go back to sleep at all, or you sleep too much.
Isn't that like insomnia?
It's insomnia, or sometimes you sleep too much. You know, which is like the total opposite.
The opposite of insomnia.
Yeah, you cry a lot. You know, you either cry a lot or you're angry all the time. You know, and it's something you cannot control. Like these emotions, they overwhelm you. You feel a sense of loneliness, of worthlessness. You know, and an extreme kind of form is when it starts endangering yourself. In order for you to kind of feel the pain or control some element of your pain, you go to self-harming, and at the worst part, it's, you know, it leads to suicide and stuff. So yeah, well, but what it's clinically diagnosed as depression is when these symptoms, like, they're consecutive for at least 2 weeks, and it's going on every day for until about 6 months or so. Then you can say, okay, now this is a really bad depression.
Oh, okay.
And it severely needs to be treated.
So that's how people can know the difference between if they're just feeling down or if they're actually feeling depressed?
I mean, everyone will feel symptoms of depression, to be honest. Like, it's a very normal thing. And there are going to be moments where you feel all of the symptoms at one time and you think, hey, am I depressed? But that's not exactly how it is, because some people can bounce back after that. Like, you will feel bad for a few days, but you can get back up. You will feel better eventually in time. Some people, they fall down and they stay down. They don't know how to get back up. They cannot get out of bed. You know, something hits them so hard they cannot do anything. And no matter how much you try to tell them, they just can't, because, you know, something's in their head. They don't know. It's like this cloud of blackness, this darkness is around them, and they're stuck in it. You know, no matter how much they try, no matter how much people tell them it's okay, you're okay, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So when it's that bad, when you feel that alone, that isolated, you know, and it's going on for like a long time, and it's only getting progressively worse, then you can say, okay, maybe it's depression.
That's actually that is very interesting, because a few days ago, my friend was talking to me. He was like saying, the reason, like humans, we're social beings, right?
Yeah.
So from the hunter-gatherer times, it's basically hardwired in our DNA to need social attraction, like social interaction, right? So once we, like, if someone from a tribe, let's say, gets exiled or something, that's when their brain basically tells them, oh, something is wrong, because they need, codependence is necessary for survival. So being alone is probably like,
that actually makes things worse.
Yeah.
Like, if you talk about depression, like, when people start feeling the symptoms, right? One of the symptoms is also self-isolation. Like, they stay away from everything. They stay away from people. They stay away from activities. When they stay away, that actually makes everything worse, because they have no one to combat their demons with. They have no one to distract themselves with, or anything to distract themselves from. So they're just alone with these dark thoughts, and there's nothing.
So why would someone go to the point that they would self-isolate themselves?
I think maybe because, okay, one of the biggest reasons people start isolating themselves is when they feel no one can understand them.
Yeah.
Right? They look for it from people, you know, as social creatures. We want to be partners together. We want to have this level of understanding, this level of teamwork, you know, kind of thing. But when you have a certain mindset and everyone around you doesn't, it feels like you're not part of them. Like, you're not part of the group. You can be surrounded, but you're not part of them. You know, and that, like, it's lonely.
Yeah,
you
definitely.
know. So when you're going through something really bad and you know it's like there's something wrong with you, and you're trying to talk to people, but everyone is on this other level of normalcy, and you're just down there. You can't enjoy it. You're not laughing at jokes. You don't feel like talking, and people are constantly asking you, are you okay? Are you okay? What's wrong? Are you okay? And you're not okay, but you don't know how to express it. So it's just it's more pressuring to be with people at that point of time, is what I think. So I feel like that's maybe what what causes them to kind of isolate themselves, because they just want to stay away from all of that effort, you know, all of that kind of social pressure.
I can relate to that. I know of
A lot of people who do that.
Yeah. It's okay. So, how would you like? Okay. Before we get to the how would you tackle something like that? Like a lot of times when people, like, you know, a friend, and then you like, okay, I wouldn't say you, because at least you would know, you would have some knowledge on how to act. Like, someone knows a friend, not a psychology student. That friend is going through depression, but then they say all the wrong things, basically.
What would be the wrong things?
The wrong things, like oh, you're not feeling depressed, you're just feeling a bit down, stuff like that.
Okay.
So what are basically the do's and don'ts?
Okay, like, to be honest, even as a psychology student, I do have friends that go through depression, and you know, you can help them as much as they want, but you know, you have to understand even your limitations. You know, it's okay if you don't have the right words.
Yeah.
What's important is your presence. You know, what people need the most is emotional support.
Yeah.
They need to feel that they are in a safe place. They need to feel that the presence means something to someone. So when you're, like, say you have a friend who's going through a really difficult time, and no matter what you say, it doesn't reach them, you know, and that makes you feel even worse, because I know, like, it's even pressuring to be the other friend, you know, who's seeing their friend go through it and being unable to help. You know, been there 100,000 times, you know. But, you know, you have to understand that it's okay to be limited, you know, but at least just try to be there. If you're capable of being there, then be there. You know, just listen. Sometimes all they need is someone to listen to what they're going through. They just need someone to listen to all of their problems. They don't want your advice, because at that particular time, some of them, they feel like, you know, they're at a different level. So no matter what you say, you don't get it. You know, I feel like that's a very unhealthy way of thinking for them. But some people really cannot control it. They're not open to advices from people who are not feeling what they're feeling. So they will, you know, they won't listen to you.
Okay, so.
But
go ahead.
The do's and the don'ts would be, don't tell them what they're feeling is nothing. Don't ever do that, because that will only isolate them further. They'll make them push you away, because, you know, you're not feeling what they're feeling. So for you to say something like that is just, I mean, it's hurtful for them, especially. So don't ever belittle their feelings. Or, you know, don't tell them, like, oh, you know, how do I say this?
I don't know, like.
Yeah,
don't feel sad.
That's the only don't. Yeah, don't. Yeah, it's so funny. People actually think, like, just snap out of it. Just snap out of it. It's gonna make you feel better. Like, that doesn't work. If people could just snap out of emotions, then there wouldn't be problems. There wouldn't be a field called psychology, because no one would need it. You know.
True.
But yeah, so, you know, people think it's so easy to snap out, but it's not. It's, for some people, it's very, 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 very difficult. So what you need to do is to be patient. You know, be very, very patient. This person is feeling lost. He or she is feeling lost. They're feeling down. They're feeling depressed. Be there as a friend. Show what support you can. You know, don't expect too much of yourself, and don't expect too much for them. Right? Just be around. And whatever advice you can give, try to give it advice. Like, if you believe that your advice is, like, a good kind of advice, then that's fine. You know, just keep telling them that. Eventually it will get to them, I'm sure. You know, but with time, it takes a lot of time.
Okay, this is a question I wanted to ask personally. Let's say you want to give advice to a person, but that person, like, it's a good thing you're here, because this is you're doing your FYP on this. So. What if you give advice to a person, but then this advice will mean nothing unless you add like an Islamic perspective to it. But then the person doesn't relate to the Islamic perspective.
Okay, yeah, that's a tricky thing. I think that's what a lot of people actually are facing, even in an Islamic university. The thing is about Islam is that when you're constantly surrounded by media, and, you know, because we watch a lot of American stuff, right?
True.
That's all. So religion and everything else is separate. It's completely separate. So when you're in this kind of place, and when you're going through problems, you don't really think about dealing it with religion, because you're so used to think of it as separate. You know, you are a different person as compared to as compared to when you're, religious or something. Like, I don't know, like, it's just very segregated. So when you don't understand the religion, when you don't have enough information about Islam, right? When you don't understand exactly how it's supposed to be, when the people around you aren't showing what Islam is supposed to be like, right? Then of course you're gonna have a bad impression. And like the example I mentioned like a while ago, right? Like, there are so many ways it can push people away. So when you want to try to advise someone with Islam, and they're not someone who is open to Islam because they don't really understand it or because they just don't believe in it, then I've been there too. Like, it's so difficult, you have to try to find the words that will make them understand without isolating them as well. Because when you keep talking about something they don't understand, they're just gonna be like, yeah, okay, this person is not helpful.
Gonna make it worse.
Yeah, but I really believe that Islam is the cure for everything. And sometimes maybe your words won't reach them. Maybe you have to try different approaches, different ways to connect them, or something that they can understand about Islam for them to get it, for them to understand. I mean, in my personal opinion, I feel like you should just keep trying, because the minute you give up on telling them, then they will lose one support, and then who else will be there for them? So just keep trying. Whoever's out there, whoever has someone who's depressed, just keep being there for as much as you can.
Okay, so you were saying Islam, you believe that Islam is the cure for everything. So from your research, why do you think so?
Okay, well, the research that I focus on is about, modern psychotherapy, which includes some elements of Islam or any religion, Christianity, Buddhism, into their therapy sessions. So Malik Badri, by the way, is my biggest, like I'm so inspired by his work, because he combines Islam and psychology together.
Okay. All right.
So when I read his books, he gives a lot of case examples of how he used Islam into it. Like, for example, there was this one client he had who had OCD. Now, OCD is an obsessive compulsive disorder. It's when you have a lot of thoughts in your head and you cannot control what you do. I mean, that's the basic definition. I give this a better definition if you Google it. But yeah, so it's like, so what she did was, like, when she prayed, she couldn't stop repeating her prayer, because every time she prayed, she was stuck with the idea that maybe she wasn't doing it right. Like, maybe I missed a salah, maybe I missed a rak'ah, one of those things. Like, maybe I missed something, maybe I didn't do it right, maybe like I'm not clean enough or something. So she kept having these thoughts in her head, and she was so afraid that she was not performing her salah properly that she kept on repeating it over and over and over again. So it disrupted her whole life. It stressed her out. It stressed out her family. It stressed out her friends. It stressed out everybody. So what she did was she had to go see a psychologist. Now, here's a good example. If she were to see a modern psychologist who didn't include religion or anything of it into their study, like, how would the treatment be?
Yeah.
How would you think? For a person who is religious, when you go to a non-religious person, like, they would tell you, okay, they will try to substitute that behavior with something else.
Yeah.
So how do you substitute a core principle of your religion? How do you do that? Right. That's why she went to Malik Badri, and what he did was he actually reminded her of a verse in the Quran or a hadith, I'm not sure, about how if you pray in congregation, the burden of the salah is not on her, it's on the imam. You get me? So in such a simple way, it made him make her realize that the responsibility of salah, since it's not on her, it's on the person. So she doesn't have to worry too much. She doesn't have to be afraid too much, because she cannot control the imam. Whatever happens, the burden of the religion is not on her anymore. Right? So she, like, with this in her head, in her mind, with Malik Badri there, like, by her side to help her, so she was able to actually get over this issue quite, like, successfully, and then, like, she had a separate problem with OCD, but, like, that was unrelated to religion, and that, he used modern psychology to deal with that. But I mean, when we're talking about the salah part, like, it was just so well done,
Yeah.
Like, such a simple thing, such a
Yeah.
simple issue, like, with such a simple solution. And I feel like it would have been so different and so difficult in many other fields if they didn't include Islam into it, or any kind of religion into it. So,
Like, I agree. Like, I remember reading this like on a website somewhere, like the importance for a Muslim to go to a Muslim therapist or psychologist. What's the difference between therapists and psychologists, by the way? Like,
I mean, they're essentially
psychiatric, psychologists, and then.
Oh God, this reminds me of my papers. Okay, therapist is more like, I mean, to be honest, therapist and psychologist is kind of the same thing, but a psychologist has a more intensive psychotherapy, like treatment plans.
And a psychiatric?
Like psychiatric prescribes drugs.
Okay.
So when you want your antidepressants, when you want your Xanax, all of that stuff, you go to a psychiatrist. If you go to a psychologist, if they don't have a degree for giving out drugs, most likely if they will need to prescribe you drugs, they will send you to a psychiatrist to prescribe you the drugs. So it's kind of like that.
So psychiatrists have a medical degree.
Yeah.
Psychologists have a psychology degree.
No, psychiatrists also have a psychology degree. It's just they can also prescribe drugs.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so they didn't necessarily have to go to med school.
Yeah, they just do that extra degree. But I mean, I don't know. I'm very anti-drugs because it's the long-term consequences of that is just.
I totally agree with you.
It's very difficult. But then I cannot be against it completely because there are extreme cases where you really need it.
Yeah.
So
If you can do without
it's
it.
a very gray area.
Yeah, I know. But I agree with you here because for me, it's like if the body can, like, this is when it comes to normal medicine, if the body can fight it, then, let the body do it.
Yeah. I mean, the mind is a very powerful tool. Like, when it comes to, like, mental disorders, some of them, like mood disorders or personality disorders, a lot of it, like, this is from you. Your mind can control it.
Mm-hmm.
These moods, these things you have the ability to change it. It's not like a body sickness, but people they lose their way, and it's so easy to fall and to lose that ability to like control your mind, so it's just it's very difficult.
It is difficult.
Yeah.
What was I saying? Story about I remembered. Yeah, the importance of going to a Muslim psychologist because or a therapist. Okay, anyways.
Either is fine.
Yeah. So the importance of going to them is that if you, like you said, if you go to a non-Muslim or like modern, they wouldn't include the Islamic perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
Into their treatment. Like someone who's suffering from social anxiety, maybe a treatment for them maybe would be to socialize more and stuff like that. So like they'll tell them to go to a party or stuff like that, or interact with girls and stuff like that. So,
interact with girls? What kind of therapy are you talking about?
I don't know, that's what I read.
Okay.
But anyways, that's like that's why it's important for like adherents of the Islamic faith to go to a
yeah, but the thing is, I wouldn't say it's necessary for everything.
It's not necessary for everything, definitely.
But I mean,
like it can just be a simple OCD, like not simple. Like
I mean,
OCD,
I feel like
not,
it's an important option to consider. Like if once you've exhausted all kinds of options and the spiritual option is still there, use it, because I've during my internship I've been to I've been as an assistant to therapy sessions, and and some people like they in other religions like Christianity, right? They have an issue with God. They have an issue. They feel like they're being punished by God, and the therapist or a psychologist like totally ignores that. Totally puts it by the side and tries to approach with a different way. And I started thinking, I mean, why don't you deal with the crux of the matter, which is the relationship with God? If you turn it into a more positive way, if you convince her that God is not this figure that punishes people, it's a merciful kind of figure, that it could help so much more than what he was doing, which was prescribing antidepressants and all of that. So yeah.
You said an important point, and I do want to discuss this. Why do you like? I know that you said it's a complicated and a gray area, but I do want to talk about it. Why do you feel like the long-term effects of drugs are not favorable?
Okay, basically, let's say right now you have depression, like severe depression. So you go to a psychiatrist and they prescribe you antidepressants. Now antidepressants, they take a while to work as well. 2 weeks more, depends, right? Okay. So let's say it takes a while for it to work on you. So suddenly you're at a moment where it does work. But the thing is, a lot of the psychiatrists, they just prescribe drugs without evaluating you over time. So you're just given these drugs for the moment you feel better, but it does nothing to solve the problem, the actual problem. It just like, you know, inhibits completely like your emotions, you know, makes you feel not as down, whatever it is, but it doesn't solve the problem. And then when you constantly use the drugs, it builds up a tolerance in your system. So you need more and more. And then with those drugs come side effects. And every time you up the level of antidepressants, you up the level of side effects. So side effects such as hand tremors starts happening. And so now you need drugs to stop those hand tremors.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like that. You know, I've watched videos where people with like bipolar disorders, they use lithium or something, and that is very powerful. So over time, it just, you know, your tolerance increases, especially because you're not solving a problem. So the problem only gets worse, or it fluctuates. You know, sometimes you feel really good, so you think you're all better, so you stop taking the drugs, but then it comes back.
You're treating a symptom, not the disease.
You know, you're not solving the actual problem. So that's where no one gets cured. You know, you just spent a lot of money, and you know your body is unhealthy, your mind is even more unhealthy, and you get all these side effects, and you need extra drugs for it. So in the long term, it really does not help.
So it's sort of like an addiction to
it. I wouldn't say it's an addiction, because you can kind of, but yes, in a way, because long term wise, like your brain, your neuropathic brainwaves or something, they adapt to that drug. You know, so it's really like once your brain is like comfortable with that level of dosage of antidepressants, they expect that all the time. They expect that to be the normal in your body. So when you're not having it, nothing feels right. So whatever depression you had without antidepressants, it's even worse. You get me? So that's how it is. But I wouldn't say don't take antidepressants.
Of course.
You know, because it really depends on the situation. But if you're taking antidepressants, you have to do something else to deal with the problem as well. Like, don't just take antidepressants and think, okay, everything's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay for now, but tomorrow when you wake up and the drugs are out of your system, what then? You know, so try to find ways, like, you know, work with your psychologist, your therapist, your psychiatrist, your Uae counselor, you know, or look online, read self-help books. I don't know why I'm speaking like this. Okay.
It's okay.
Self-help books to help you through it, you know, because there are so many resources available online, so many things that are trying to cope with depression, because depression is like now one of the worldwide mental health issue. Like, it's so common.
Yeah.
So there's so many ways online that can help you, you know. So if you have to take drugs, take the drugs, but do something else as well, you know, to restructure the way you think about.
So you're not reliant on the drug forever.
Yeah, because honestly, it's not healthy in the long way.
All right, so we're going to go for a quick break, guys, and after we are back, we are going to talk about a lot of other things. One of them is when is it time when it's time to say that you need to go to a therapist, and when is it time for you to think that, oh, okay, I think at this point I need to take drugs and not just normal therapy. So we're going to discuss all that after the break, inshallah.
Yeah.
And thank you for no wait, not thank you yet.
You better stay until the end.
Yes. So we're going to go for a quick break, and
see you.
We have we're going to play that, and then see you after the break, inshallah.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, guys, and welcome back to the second segment of today's show of Friday Night Live. Thank you for tuning in. And before the break, we were talking about therapy and when is and like drugs, and is it good for you to depend on drugs, and why why we think that it's better not to depend on drugs, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, if you have to take it, take it.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I'm not professional. I can't just say things like that. You know.
So I was going to ask now. We were going to we were talking about how, you know, people couldn't try not to what's the word, self-isolate themselves.
Yeah.
Like how they shouldn't self-isolate themselves from friends, and, you know, having friends around is going to help a lot. But what if but what if that doesn't cut it?
That's not enough.
Yeah. When is it time to go see a therapist?
Okay, see that's a question that's, to be honest, I'm not sure when it's, but it's like this. When it comes to the part where you think you are, severely depressed, where what you're feeling really affects everything. It affects your work, your academic life. It affects your social life. It affects, your daily work. So like you're not doing anything progressive anymore. You're just staying away from everything. You're just staying in your room, and there's no, like nothing is improving. You have to decide for yourself when you want to see a therapist, because these people are always around. These people are there for you for them to help you in whatever way you can. So when you think that it's harmed you, when you think like when you think it's really affecting your life, then I feel like you should go, because mood swings, these things happen all the time. It's normal to feel sad for a day. It's normal to feel overwhelmed and stressed out and a bit depressed for like a week straight, right? Especially if you get bad marks or you're fighting with someone who's really close to you.
Definitely.
Or you got dumped. But like, these things happen.
Yeah.
But what makes you feel like you really need to seek help is when you think it's going into a really dark road. That's especially like you have to be really careful. Like, do you really think your like thoughts are coming to your head? Dark thoughts are coming to your head. Are you thinking about self-harming now? Are you questioning living? Are you really staying away from all of your friends and all of your activities? Like, is your academic life like are your results becoming really bad? And did you stop caring about these kind of stuff? You have to decide for yourself at what point you think you need help, because no one can watch your life and be like, okay, he's fit all he's checked and all the symptoms, he's qualified now. That's not how it works. You have to decide for yourself whether you want to have the help, whether you think you need the help.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, do you think like we all know like we all go through hard times, right? Sometimes we feel, like you said, we feel down for a day, sometimes it's a week, but it's not always constant.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So do you think like is there like stages of depressions, like like there's like acute depression, and there's like chronic depression?
Yeah. To be honest, like under the umbrella of depression, there are many kinds of depression.
Okay.
For example, postpartum depression, which is when women give birth and after that they're just depressed and no one can understand why. They give birth to a beautiful life. Like, why aren't they happy? But that happens. They get really, really depressed. And the thing is, you're depressed when, let's say for 2 weeks straight, you have really bad symptoms. And after 2 weeks, it just progressively gets worse and worse and worse. And then the thing is, when it goes on and no one is doing anything about it, and you're not doing anything about it, so when it lasts up to 6 months of the same feelings, and it's like worse feelings, then it's clinically diagnosed as major depressive disorder, MDD. Yeah.
Major depressive disorder.
Major depressive. But then there's also like moderate depressive disorder, like when it's not that bad within maybe 2 weeks and 6 months, where you have the symptom, it's consistent but not as bad. Yeah, but of course there are stages. And that's why you need to, if you feel like you are going through depression and you don't know how to help yourself and you want to get out, either you seek help from people around you, or you Uae counselor, or you go to an actual psychologist.
What do you think about the Uae counseling? Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I've never had an experience where I had to go there. I'm not sure whether they're like. What are you trying to ask here?
Like, do you feel like are they qualified?
Are they qualified? Of course. Of course. I mean, they should be.
Are they
qualified.
meeting the needs
of the students?
Of the student populace?
Okay, counselors are kind of like psychologists.
Okay.
They do similar courses. So are they qualified to be there? I mean, I'm sure they have to be. I mean, they go through training before they're sitting up there.
Okay.
Right. So they should be qualified to be there.
Okay.
But again, psychology is like this. What works for you may not necessarily work for the next person. It's not black and white. It's not built on set rules like every other field of science. You know, everything is changeable. Everything is dependent on the individual of the individuality of the person.
Okay.
So say you went for depression,
Yeah.
right? So if she came up with a treatment plan for you, that would be great because it would work for you, you know, and you would feel so much better. But if I went after you, right, and she tried to use the same treatment plan on me, it wouldn't work. You know, because I'm a different person. What affects you does not affect me, and how you think is totally different from what I think. Or maybe we have similarities, but it just doesn't work. You know, so it's like a hit or miss. Sometimes it will work. You know, sometimes you'll be lucky enough, and it really does hit you, and it works, and it's successful, and you do feel better. And sometimes, you know, you need to try a different approach, or they need to figure out a different approach that can connect to you.
Do you think maybe UIA should upgrade and get
Psychologists. There are psychologists already in UAE, but they're lecturers.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
I'm not. Yeah.
like instead of just counselors, because like you said, it's hit or miss.
Okay.
So what if it is a miss?
Okay. Now the thing is, counselors are set to deal with specific kind of problems. Like psychologists is a very broad field. They deal with, like, especially clinical psychologists, they deal with like extreme, severe kind of mental disorders, like really crazy mental disorders. Here, counselor, they're expected to deal with only certain types of mental disorders. Like example, students, not all of them will go through, there's something called DID, dissociative identity disorder. Ever watch Split?
Yup.
A guy with many personalities? Yeah, it's not expected for a counselor to deal with a person who has DID. Psychologists should. You know, but things like depression, things like anxiety, you know, these are things counselors would kind of know about, would kind of know how to treat, because that is the area of specialty. They're trained to deal with like disorders that affect like most of the people around you, the common disorders that are expected in an environment like this. You know, so things like OCD, you know, like the more extreme versions, the other kinds, like they're not expected for counselors to treat them. It's not expected. I mean, I guess counselors could if they're knowledgeable about it, but they're not expected to treat like these things. Psychologists.
Okay, I agree with you there, but let's, like I said, what if there is a case?
What if there is a case?
There is a case that is not as like, okay, depression that has maybe evolved into self-harm or suicidal thoughts.
Okay.
Would you think that's still under counselor or under psychologists?
I mean, I think it could still be under counselor. Like it's under both, to be honest, because depression, again, there are different stages, and if they've already like tried or thought about suicide, and let's just say that their symptoms are so severe and it's been going on for 6 months, so they're clinically diagnosed as major depressive disorder, right? So if they go to a counselor for that, I mean, I think it should be okay, because the counselor, it's not like they don't know about these disorders. You know, when they're in their job scope, they have the ability to treat them. Or maybe they don't have like all the plans, all the psychotherapies available, you know, schema therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, all of that stuff as a psychologist would, but a counselor is okay. I feel like it really depends on the counselor as well, you know, how much they educate themselves, how much how many skills they try to adapt.
Okay.
You know? But yeah. But I would recommend, if a person is to that level, to rather go to a psychologist, because they have a broader range of treatment plans that they can use.
Now, coming to that point, we all know it's like seeing a psychologist sometimes isn't cheap, all right?
Very expensive.
Okay, good. It came for you.
I know.
So,
so costly. I feel so sad, you know, when I was interning at the psychology center, and then I saw people coming in and they asked how much the price was, and it was like 200, you know, for
a session.
For a session, and then they're expected to come every week or every 2 weeks, and I'm like, whoa.
That's
crazy.
That's a topic for another time.
It's crazy, you know. I was like, damn.
I feel like this is.
I feel sad.
An essential thing, you know. Like it's like milk and bread. It shouldn't be too expensive, because we're talking about someone's health, mental health here.
For the society, you know, it needs to be. Oh my God, I feel so sad whenever I saw people come in and then they looked at the price and then their face just dropped, and I'm like.
Okay, yeah, that is honestly, like, I'm just trying to imagine it and it's making me feel sad. So, in that case, do you think it would be advisable for UAE to hire its own
Psychologists.
Maybe it doesn't have to be for free of charge, like even though
But like it's cheaper.
like exactly
More
cheaper,
affordable.
like dentists, like not all dentist procedures here in UAE are free of charge. Some are, we still have to
There's
pay.
a dentist in UAE?
Yeah, there's a dentist in UAE.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yes, there's a dentist.
I thought it was just a clinic place where they give you like Panadol for every problem.
And antibiotics. So no, there's also a dentist.
Where is it?
It's you have the clinic here, and then you go out. And
Oh,
then,
it's not even in there.
no,
it's somewhere
not,
else.
Somewhere, it's like next to it. We really went off on a tangent here, but
Okay.
yeah, there's a dentist.
You learn
here.
something new every day.
That's true. So, like I said, would it be advisable to have a
Psychologist.
psychologist, but with more affordable
Right. Of course,
prices?
I am totally for that. I feel, to be honest, I mean, counselors should be as trained as psychologists. You know, to be honest, like even when I like read my textbooks and all that, like they say what the differences between counselors and psychologists are blurring nowadays. To be honest, because a lot of what psychologists are only supposed to deal with, counselors deal with too, like depression, right?
Okay.
Or the severity of depression.
Okay.
But if we put a psychologist here for a cheaper price, that is to me so much better because they can provide a more enhanced treatment. You know, they're actual. I don't know, maybe I'm biased or something, but I think like psychologists are more professional because they know more. They're supposed to know more. You know, they're supposed to be able to provide more help. So if talk therapy doesn't work, you know, they can try other treatments, CBT, schema, you know, whatever's available. You know, they can try that, and if it doesn't work, fine, they'll move on to the next treatment plan. You know, yeah. But it depends also on the psychologist. Not a lot of psychologists know the different kinds of treatment. You know, sometimes they're trained specifically for only one type, and they perfect that, and that's great. But sometimes it doesn't work on a particular client, so then it's just But it's always it's a hit or miss. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay, that's interesting to know that sometimes it's a hit or miss. So when it comes to like someone, they know that they're feeling depressed. Okay. They know it, and then they can't afford exactly to go to a psychologist.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
So they decide to go for self-treatment.
Self-treatment, okay.
So what do you think of over-counter treatments? And there's also have been
What do you mean by over-counter?
over-the-counter medication. Over-the-counter medication.
Oh, like getting your own drugs.
Getting your own drugs, exactly.
Okay.
Just over the counter. Like the things that you can just go to any pharmacy and then like I just want a strip of this.
Okay.
And then they'll give it to you because you don't need a prescription for it. And there's also well, clearly from an Islamic point of view, we can rule this one out, but some people have asked about marijuana.
Weed and stuff.
Yeah, exactly, because you know, weed basically, the whole idea about it is just it makes you feel euphoric.
But yeah, okay. I don't really, from what I've heard, there's no there's no withdrawal symptom from weed, right?
Okay.
So supposedly it should be okay, but it's not yet what psychologists use. Like they don't recommend that on their clients.
Okay.
I mean, there's a reason for that because weed is easily accessible. Everyone can get it, right?
Yeah.
So when it's something that easy to get, you know, you will use it constantly, but again, you will not actually solve the problem. You're just going to temporarily feel better. I mean, is that what you want? Do you want to just temporarily feel better, or do you want to progressively
Some people might
get
want
better?
to.
Right, and the thing is,
feel better. That's the thing.
I mean, to be honest, I don't know about like what it's like to use weed, and then, you know, I'm not in their position. I'm not entirely sure. But when it comes to self-help, like I said, there are so many resources available. Like you have no idea. A book I would recommend that apparently a lot of people are really like hyping up that's really good is this book called 12 Ways of Life or 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, I recommend try reading that book. It's not an Islamic book. I don't know if I should like be recommending Islamic books. I'm not sure, but this is a very good self-help book.
Okay.
You know, so if you're feeling down, if you lost confidence in life, and you just, you know, you're lost. I heard this I haven't read it personally, but the reviews about it are really amazing, and it helped change a lot of people's lives.
Okay.
Like they go through severe depression, severe anxiety, like all of the like really like dark disorders, and like it helped them in a way because it gave them the power to take control of their own mind, and that's essentially what everyone has the ability to do. You just have to decide how you're going to do that.
Okay, so that's when it comes to weed. So what about like
Over-counter drugs.
Yeah, over-counter drugs, exactly.
Again, I have very negative. I just don't think you should rely on drugs because it's going to make you feel better only for that particular moment. And if no one is evaluating you, if no one is judging you and giving you advice and techniques of how to healthily cope with what you're going through, just relying on drugs is just bad because you're going to abuse it. You're going to abuse it because life is always like if you don't know how to handle the bad things that happen to you in a particular moment and you constantly run to drugs to solve your problem or to just make you feel better, you're never going to get out of it because that's the only way you know how to deal with it, and that's not healthy, and that's not progressive, and that's not going to make you get any better in any way, so temporarily if you're really feeling so down, okay, fine, take the drug, but do you really think that it's going to stop you the next time you want to take a drug? Do you really think like the stuff that's going to happen to you, is it going to ever stop? Like is life going to be so great that you won't ever need drugs? So it's very important to decide for yourself whether you can control your level of dependency on the drugs.
That is important.
That is just like my final, because I really wouldn't want to encourage it, but it depends on your situation. Like, how severe are you? Like, do you make that your last option? I feel go through every other way possible. Talk to, if you're a Muslim, right? Talk to a sheikh. If that doesn't work, seek a professional counselor help. Read self-help books. There are a lot of very, very good self-help books that are.
You know any Islamic self-help books?
The Quran. I mean, I don't know an actual book.
Okay.
But or there's one, I have to remember it. Something happiness. I forgot.
Is it like by a Muslim author?
A Muslim author, yeah.
Okay.
Be happy or something. I can't remember. There's a book titled something happiness, and I mean it worked a little bit when I was like going. Even I had a period of depression, and when I read it helped me feel a little bit better. But I was just lazy. I didn't want to go back and read it.
Okay.
But I mean, there are many, many, many books. You just have to Google it. You have to find what works, read the reviews, and you will find. Even watch videos. There's so many
do you
videos.
think there's a lot of self-help books by Islamic authors?
I mean,
Muslim
I feel
authors?
like there should be. There should be. No, but I think there are, but we're just not aware of it because the things that are hyped up are not Islamic things.
True. That is very true.
To be very honest, it's like we're so used to trendy things in America or not America. The West, right?
Yeah.
That we feel like there's nothing that's of value among the
from
Islamic
our side,
community,
yeah.
and I feel that's because we're not allowing ourselves to look. A lot of times we are not looking for it. So when we don't look for what is available in our community and we're only depending on what's in their community, you're limiting yourself. Because as a Muslim, you have the power. As a Muslim, you have that extra side, that cure that you have that other people don't, because you believe in a God, and that's oh my God, that's so powerful. You have no idea. Okay.
Oh, my phone I think is shutting
Dying?
down. Well, it's fine since we're coming to the end of the the show here. We have like 4 minutes to go. I really hope I find the video on Instagram once I get
And
back.
it just cuts off.
Yeah. Anyways, to those who are still on Periscope, how would you we're going to conclude this by an advice.
Okay.
Advice to a person who's going through, and advice to a person who has a friend who's going through depression.
Okay. If you are a person who is going through something you think might be depression, first of all, it's okay to feel what you're feeling. Don't ever think that you're failing as a human being by going through this. If even Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the most religious supposed person on earth, right? He went through a period of depression, and that's when Surah Yusuf was revealed, right? So it's like it doesn't matter what stage of life you're going to be in. You are going to go through depression, and it's totally okay. It's totally fine to lose your way. It's totally fine to be in a moment of slump. But what you have to do is you have to keep trying to get back up. The minute you give up on yourself, that's the minute you're going to be stuck in a situation that you will never find yourself, like you'll never find a way out of. And that's something you, like, obviously you don't want to be in. So just keep on trying. Like, I know sometimes it feels like the tunnel is so dark and that there is nothing for you and that there's no one for you and that you're just so alone, but you have to keep on believing that you're not. You have to look for that light because it's there. Trust me, it's there. Okay, as a person who's seen so many people go through all kinds of things, some of them are still struggling, some of them are still lost, but some of them have managed to find their way out slowly, but they're getting there. And just as they are finding their way, you can find your way too. So don't ever give up. If try to find as much help as you can, the people around you, the friends that are there, and there are friends who are there for you. Okay, your parents, your family, don't push away your family. Your lecturers, the Uae Counselor. If it's really bad and you really feel like you need help, try the Uae Counselor. It's free. It's available for you. It's an option. Try it. And if you don't feel like it's working, maybe save up for a psychologist, a professional psychologist, or look for one of the UAE lecturers who are actually kind of like psychologists. Maybe try that. Look online for self-help stuff. Like the resources are there. Everything is out there for you. You have to decide for yourself whether you want to take the courage to get out of the sticky situation that you're in, the sticky mess of your brain that you're in right now. Okay, you are going to be just fine. Okay, you're a survivor. You're a survivor. Okay.
All right. So, and advice for a friend
who is going.
For a person who has a friend going through depression.
To be honest, that's kind of a hard situation. I've been in that situation. You will never feel like you're doing enough, because as long as that person is still there, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, it just doesn't seem to be helping, right? But what I would advise you is to just know what your limits are, because you are also a human being. It's not like you're not going to get affected by what they do. You will too. So know your limits, know what you're capable of. If you really think you're strong enough to provide them that help, then stay there, be with them. But if you feel like you cannot handle it, like it's really, really affecting who you are, it's okay. Take a step back, build yourself up again, and then you can come back and help your friend. You just know what your own limits are, and understand that they're human and you're human too. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to say a lot of dumb stuff which you probably should not say, and that's okay. What's important is that you learn from it and you keep trying. If your friend is going through them, if you know any random stranger who seems really depressed, be that kind Muslim dude or girl and just smile and just offer them whatever help they need. Sometimes all they need is one person to make them feel like they're important. One person who they feel like sees them, for who they are, or whatever it is. So just show your support, and then in any way you can, a smile, a handshake, a greeting. Hey, you want to eat out with me? Or hey, just how are you doing? Just ask them. Ask them to talk about what's going on with them. Just try to be there, basically, in any way that you can, provide as much help as you can, and just,
That's really great advice. As we come to the end of our show, we are a minute over time, but that's okay. We started a bit late. So anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. I really hope you guys enjoyed this show, and I really hope you were able to get any useful, beneficial information from here, and it will help you to either get through whatever you're going through, or help your friends get through whatever they're going through. And once again, thank you so much, Nasreen, for coming. Honestly, lifesaver. Thank you so much.
I hope I gave valuable information.
Honestly, it was valuable for me, so I'm pretty sure it was valuable to whoever was listening. So, thank you once again, and thank you guys for tuning in, and see you again next show, inshallah. And
bye.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam.